like to introduce our next speaker. Also a charter member like the preceding speakers, both BV and Navneet. Dr. Sanjay Kumar is, I'll let him tell you his story, but he has had, again, numerous successes to his life, but it all has come with effort, with a lot of the strategic thinking that BV shared with us, and living through the history that Navneet covered with us, right? So he's currently the MD of Synapta Group. He also founded a company called Quantros and had a very successful exit. He mentors a lot of young entrepreneurs. He's a physician and then went on to get an MPH degree. By the way, just for everybody's benefit, all the bios are there with our audience. We created a package for them before even they arrived. So that's why we don't go into too much of the detail in terms of the bios. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Sanjay on stage and let him take it away.
Thank you, Ramesh. No, you wouldn't want to go through the bio, then we might not have lunch. Actually, I'm a healthcare guy, right? I've noticed that a lot of you have been sitting around for a long period of time. That's not good for your health. So why don't we just get up and literally stretch our legs a little bit? It's good for you guys to do that. Stretch it, come on. It's good to exercise. Or you want the iWatch now so that you can be told what to do, right? No, believe it or not, on the long flights to India, get up every hour and a half, and go just roam around the corridor. Very, very helpful.
Blood circulation.
Blood circulation. So I'm actually going to be using slides. So Ramesh, is there a clicker?
Ramesh?
Is there a clicker? No, so I just have to advance. How do I advance my slides? So just like page down or something? That's going to be fun. So just page down, right? Where would page down be? Down here? Got it. Okay, so I really read through the bios of folks. I think there are about 3 budding healthcare innovators in the room, if I'm not wrong. 3 or 4, right? Three. And actually some green tech as well. And one of the companies, if I'm not wrong, is actually close to my heart. You're producing, or your concept is creating a 12-lead EKG. That's you. Interesting concept. I mean, I would love to hear more about it. I'm a cardiologist by training. Well, that's how I started my career. So I'm going to give you a little bit more of an in-depth. So BV actually, and dear friend BV, and we actually collaborate on a number of things and share like thoughts regarding the growth of companies. I'm actually going to take you an introspect on a company that literally pulled the industry together with us. So we literally started very, very early in our life, and we literally pulled the industry together with us. It was a tough journey to do that. When I say the industry, the whole U.S. healthcare industry. My career literally started off as an internist and a cardiologist, and I practiced in 3 continents. I grew up in Africa. I didn't really grow up in India. I don't know much about India. My parents live in Dehradun, and I do go back there briefly for holidays, but my upbringing was in Africa. And from there, I went to the UK, England, and practiced over there, and found the environment a little bit too restrictive, very conservative society. So came over to the US and literally flourished over here in terms of what I had to contribute. Aside from my clinical background, I do have a master's in health planning and financing, and also a background in epidemiology and biostatistics. To cut a long story short, my career, and I'm just going to go into these in-depth portions of it to basically give you at least what gets some people started down the path that they do start off in, right? My career literally started off with, when you come to the U.S., the first thing in any foreigners, any Indian-born person is, how do you basically settle down over here, right? You need a green card. My green card came within 4 months. I got a job with the CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is literally a federal program. My green card petition was signed by Tommy Thompson, who was at that time the Secretary for Health. They needed my brain to help them figure out how do you basically go about monitoring and improving upon the quality of care for the citizens that they were paying for, which was the Medicare patients. But needless to say, working with the feds, which is a mammoth $2.3 trillion industry or budget for the healthcare component in the U.S., it pointed out certain key opportunities that perhaps could be addressed. So briefly before that, let me go back to at least the genesis of entrepreneurship to give you some fun facts. We never know that we would be entrepreneurs, right? But it actually starts off very earlier on in life. Back when I was a kid, I didn't know that I had the business sense in me, but in order to sustain even as a teenager lifestyle that I needed to lead, I used to capitalize and leverage upon all the wonderful friends that my dad had. They all at that time, there was no Netflix. Right? Netflix was perhaps in the future, but we could literally copy and provide videos so I used to get my Sindhi. So there are a lot of Sindhis in Africa, right? They're all settled over there. And there were no copyright laws. Who the hell cared? They had bedrooms full of Betamax and VHS video recorders, and they just used to copy the latest video movies, and we were sort of like the distribution arm for them, right? It was good business. But it at least sustained the lifestyle. When I went to college, I literally continued that. In college, there was no entertainment, right? I mean, it's not like over here where you have multiple different media to do that. So we used to actually showcase films, for students. And later on, during my career as a clinician, being a very poor country, or the country that I grew up in was Nigeria, it was a very rich country. When I say very rich, my parents went there in 1969. At that time, it was called, just after the Civil War, they had discovered black gold, which was literally oil, very rich crude oil. But unfortunately, with wealth comes a lot of corruption. So the country literally went very high and came crashing down. So there was a lot of poverty, and there was a lot of where healthcare was completely free. In the later years, healthcare was charged. Before a patient is even operated upon, they used to give them a list of things that they had to go buy and bring back before they would operate on them, right? So really help the poor by subsidizing supplies for them that they really needed. The hospital didn't like that. So let's now go into really what Quantros was all about. So Quantros, to cut a long story short, ended up being the first cloud-based. So at that time, the word cloud was not even coined. It coined afterwards. The first software service ASP data management and decision support platform that was created to help hospitals and healthcare providers monitor patient safety, quality, and compliance. And I'm talking late 1990s and 2000. So the internet had just come about. We built a technology platform stack that literally was ahead of its time. So there's a law over here called HIPAA, which is really for patient privacy and security, right? So you cannot literally disclose. Those regulations were not even formalized properly at that time. The idea behind Quantros, or what Quantros did, I discussed it openly even with the feds, right, with CMS, but they're a mammoth organization. They could not grapple with the fact that you could actually literally use the internet and start collecting data from participating providers and get them to actually improve upon patient safety and quality by reviewing the data in much more real-time fashion. So we became the de facto, over a period of time, the Quantros solutions literally became the de facto solutions for enabling monitoring of patient safety, quality, and compliance. I mean, think about the hospitals in India today. I mean, wouldn't you love to basically at least maybe perhaps type a name of a hospital and see what the ranking or rating of that hospital is in terms of how often patients die over there, how well do they treat patients with heart failure or AMI. It would be great to do that. Today in the US, you can actually do that. You can go to hospitalcompare.org and literally type in a hospital's name and find out whether they're a good quality hospital or not. We provided the data for all of that, right? We enabled that journey. So we became or we were the right company at the right time with the right suite of products that literally brought the industry into where it is today, which is basically focusing on quality and safety. So if anybody has actually monitored how healthcare has actually evolved in the US, quality and safety were not something that they loved to talk about before. They didn't want to monitor that, right? We literally created the movement for them to basically begin to look at that kind of data. And why? For a person like me, it was a very passionate journey. I mean, Billy talks about the passion. 100,000 people die every year from preventable medical errors in the US. Okay? Another 100,000 people die from hospital-acquired infections. So we literally kill 2 plane loads of people every day. By the time I stop talking, in about an hour's time, and you guys can have lunch, that's the only thing keeping me from you and lunch, right? Is that we kill about 600 people a day, right? About 20 people every hour. Okay, go figure that out. That is what.
Because of what? Non-preventive?
So one cause is basically preventable medical errors, meaning that there are certain things that we could have. So hypothetically, let's say, for example, I'll give you a very good example. Who knows the actor Dennis Quaid? Dennis Quaid, very famous actor. He had twins, right? Premature twins. They were in the ICU, neonatal intensive care unit, and somebody, a nurse, accidentally gave both the twins a adult dose of heparin flush in their umbilical vein, right? And when you're in the neonatal unit, in order to infuse fluids, you have a line put into your umbilical cord, right? Now, how did that happen? A very, very simple error. The bottle that was basically for adult heparin and neonatal heparin, very, very similar, right? No differentiation between that. Somebody had just gone and stocked the wrong bottle in the neonatal unit, and the nurse did not take a look at it. Now, the surprising thing about that, the kids, by the way, did get better, but the surprising thing was about a year before, the same type of error had occurred at another hospital, different place, and had killed 3 babies, right? Same error, but we did not learn from it, meaning that the same error perpetuated itself in Mount Sinai, which is one of the top-rated hospitals in the world, right? So those are the kind of errors. So they were completely preventable. There was knowledge from before. So it's not like when a plane crashes, there's an NTSB and there's a research that goes into literally figuring out why the hell a plane crashed, right? But what I'm here to tell you is that a plane crashes every day of patients, and nobody really was that concerned about knowing exactly why those planes were crashing. We brought that to light, meaning that we created systems and standardized protocols and procedures for hospitals to adopt to begin to catalog all of that information and learn from it. Right? That was what the Quantros journey was partly about. In terms of quality, if you came to a hospital with, let's say, a heart attack, there are certain things that the hospital is supposed to do, to give you aspirin within 24 hours, get you to basically evaluate you whether you can receive a stent or not, or any antithrombolytic therapy. All of those things are supposed to be done within a timely fashion. We monitored all of that data from the medical records to basically see whether those things were done in a proper fashion or not. And based upon that, we computed a quality score or quality metric. So that's literally what the Quantros journey was all about. Did we succeed? Yes, we succeeded. There were about close to 5,000 commercial hospitals and 6,000 total number of hospitals, including federal. We ended up in about 2,300 hospitals by the time we sold the company. So how did the journey actually start? You know, when the internet started, so when I was working with CMS, our biggest challenge was they had asked us as young clinicians to try to figure out how we could monitor patient safety and quality. So we were doing it in a very, very how you might put it, very archaic fashion. We used to get hospitals to collect data, submit it to us on diskettes, collate all that data, aggregate all of it, analyze it, and 1 year later, send them back a report, because it took all that time to actually do that manual processing, send them a report and tell them, oh, by the way, a year ago, this is how you were performing. You need to improve. Hospitals didn't like that. They really did not want to be told after, a year later how they were basically doing. So our concept was, hey guys, we don't have to be retrospective. We can literally be concurrent with all of this. We can use the internet to literally enable them to collect data. We can profile their data, aggregate their data, report it back to them in literally near real time, and provide also comparatives. Why can't we do that? We can share with one hospital how perhaps Stanford is doing compared to UCSF. They should be able to do that. There's no shyness in doing that, as long as it's all around performance improvement. And that was really the premise of what Quantros was all about. So in late 1998, we literally started working towards that. We incorporated the company in 1997. And slowly began to evolve. Now, when BV says dragging the industry together with you, nobody had conceptualized that one day the web in healthcare would actually be used to aggregate my information and then feed data back to me or reports back to me. So it was a foreign concept to them. The industry was not there. We had to literally educate them. Took some long time to actually do that, almost 3 to 4 years. Company survived. I mean, we survived with some contracts that we got from some progressive groups, but literally the industry caught up with us in 2002. In 2002, we began to have success in terms of hospitals finally adopting. And by the way, we got funded in April of 2000. We only took one round of funding. And for those of you that know what happened in April of 2000, BV can probably tell you what happened in April of 2000 or May of 2000. As soon as we got funded, but there was a technology boom bust, right? Everything crashed over here, at least in Silicon Valley. Companies literally went bankrupt overnight. It was decimated. But we luckily got funded, but we had to learn to survive with those $2 million. There was no other money coming. So for the next 2 to 3 years in Silicon Valley, it was completely, totally dry. So we figured out how to literally try to drive whatever revenue that we could, balance ourselves, but we did not give away our product for free. There was no free product for anybody. There was a price attached. You do not give away your product for free. If you produced a product, it costs you some money to build. You have to get that money back, and there has to be value proven to the customer in terms of what that money needs to be in order for them to realize the benefits of it. When we came into Silicon Valley, we hired more team members. We were a very, very small company. We did not have, you're looking at the initial salesperson, but I was a doctor, just learning to basically literally be a businessman. Did not understand what recognized revenue was or all of these fancy stuff. Basically got an education in some of all of that. We hired a wonderful team that continues to partner well together with each other. We changed the company name from Healthcare Infotech because somehow or the other, the Valley did not like acronyms. They preferred a name that literally was a container, and we called the company Quantros, with Q basically standing for quality. Literally, I mean, once we started and the industry began to catch up, by 2003 to 2004 and 5 and 6, we literally were doubling our client base. Every year. And we began to introduce other products to them. We began to, we were not addressing patient safety at first. The patient safety journey actually began after the Institute of Medicine published a very landmark report, which is called To Err is Human, which highlighted the significance of the number of deaths that are actually caused in the industry from preventable medical errors. This actually just highlights the journey and the growth. The key takeaway points over here in terms of the number of hospitals that we got, the top line is actually the kind of industry driving forces that were there. So if something happened within the industry, we had a action or a product related to that literally came out. So we were always on top from an industry standpoint, working to make sure that we were addressing the critical needs. In the beginning, our products were a good to have, meaning that they were not a must have. Because monitoring of quality and safety was all voluntary in the beginning. Only recently, from 2008 onwards, it became mandatory, meaning that there's a big movement that has started in the US, which is called pay for performance and value-based purchasing, meaning that a physician or a hospital is only going to be paid if he can demonstrate that he's providing good quality care to his patients, or a hospital is going to be paid if he can prove that he's not killing patients. Right? So all of those movements have now become mandatory. But at a point in time, our products were still a good to have, not a must have. But as soon as the must haves occurred, the growth literally continued. We were the type of company that literally other companies tried to chase. So they tried to emulate us. For about five years, we were the only name in town. The key attribute of Quantros was that we actually addressed quality, safety, and compliance, which later on, people tell me, oh, how come you started on all those three at the same time? And because that was the logical thing to do, in my mind. Guess what? Today, all those three are required, but there's no single company, even as of today, that does all the three together. Quantros is the only company that still does that. So what did we achieve? We became the market leader in safety and quality performance improvement. We were recognized within the industry. And one of the things I forgot to bring out of my car, I have authored 2 books. One of them is on patient safety, and the other one is actually called Demand Better. It's really to highlight what more needs to be done within healthcare and the advances that need to be made. I'll be more than happy to give those 2 books to any young innovator over here that asks the most questions, if we can leave enough time for that, right? But we did become the industry leaders. We had hospitals in literally every state, and we were supporting over 1 million plus physicians, hospital users throughout. And remember, we were web-based environment. This just gives you, the way that we attacked the states was very, very similar the skills that politicians attack their campaigns. If you win Florida, Texas, and California, you got it made. So if you notice the green, the darker green actually represents states that we were very heavily penetrated in. So we literally went about it state by state and started conquering those hospitals over there. California alone, by the way, has 440 acute care hospitals. Great achievements. Some of these achievements actually became very big barriers to competitors as well. We became the largest data asset or data store for comparative analysis and benchmarking for hospitals. Nobody else could basically provide that to anybody. We established very, very key industry relationships with even regulators and accrediting bodies, because they would look upon us and ask us for our opinion because we had that much clout, right? So what makes a company successful? Let's talk about that. First of all, we actually innovated right from the beginning. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what a SaaS model was, what an ASP platform was, but we just thought that it was the right thing to do. But in the end, it became a big barrier for any other person to follow us. We created a multi-tenant environment from the beginning. Believe it or not, that same technology stack, even though we have left the company nearly 3.5 years ago, the technology stack right from day one is still the same technology stack and still being used, and it's rock solid, right? We created it on a Java Oracle platform, very, very scalable. We had our own, actually, believe it or not, we didn't know BV at that time, but our first data center was on Bunker Hill. Exodus was our data center, the older building, and then Savis bought out Exodus, and we actually moved into the adjoining building in the opposite. So we actually used BV's first company to host our applications. We achieved great financial success. I mean, the company literally grew 50% year over year in terms of both revenues as well as customer acquisitions. Now, the key thing I think that is crucial over here is we had people within the team driving more from the industry side. So I'm a clinician. I understood the industry, understood the needs of the industry. I was more of an industry spokesperson. But at the same time, we had very good technical folks and expertise in-house that literally helped build that stack that I was talking about, right? Lots of things could have gone wrong if we didn't have all of that come together. But we literally had that. And we hired, the right people. My right-hand person became my EVP for biz dev and sales, right? He still partners together with me. We still work on opportunities, but he had like 20 plus years selling within the healthcare industry. So he understood the pains of the industry and what we were basically bringing. Huge. And by the way, just as we were exiting the company, I did tried to penetrate into India, but didn't have that much luck. Encountered very similar situations to what you're talking about. They just want a product and they want it for free. But if you're not willing to give it for free, they don't entertain you that much. And they don't perhaps still recognize the need for actually doing all of this monitoring and reporting because it's not that heightened within the customer's mind. Now, do we kill people in India because of preventable medical errors and hospital-acquired infections? I can bet you it's probably 10 times more than over here, right? You just got to look at the numbers over there, and you realize that those numbers are great. We prescribe medications over there by the pill and get them to basically go get it from the pharmacist. Sometimes the patients don't even know what the hell that they're taking or how that drug might interact with some other drug that they might be taking at home, right? All of that knowledge is not there to actually help patients. We developed great mind share. Leadership, published a lot, and really the way to make a company successful when you're growing is to make sure that you create a lot of noise. Create a lot of noise, because that is one place that, guess what, your competitors do not have enough bandwidth to literally do the same, because they're younger, they're smaller, they have a smaller team. So if you can crush them early, especially in niche markets like healthcare, IT, do that, right? Company was so successful that in 2009, so let me give you a small glimpse into the person that actually invested in us. He was from Louisiana. And Louisiana, by the way, if you know the U.S. a little bit, is almost like a separate country of its own in the U.S. Very laid back, but very, very successful place as well. A lot of wealth comes from there. A lot of oil over there, and a lot of rich folks over there. The gentleman that actually invested in us had started off a company that got acquired by WorldCom. He had a telecom company. For a period of time when AT&T was very big over here, the only name in town was AT&T for telecom. The cable, wireless, and telecom industry was being broken up. So his company literally benefited from a lot of all of that, but later on his company got acquired for a very large sum of money by WorldCom. But in that process of literally making his own company grow, he had ended up with at least 3 bypasses. And every time he ended up with a bypass and ended up in hospital, they did something wrong to him. So when we actually approached him for funding, he thought it was a great cause and this would be a great thing as a leave behind, right? So he literally didn't mind giving the money. And he was the most, I would say, the best board member that you could literally have. He didn't harass us. He didn't bother us. He just wanted to see good come out of it. But he stuck with the company for 10 years. And the way that he used to tell me was that, Sanjay, I come to California all the way from Louisiana for your board meetings. You brought me out of retirement. I don't want to be doing this all the time. So in 2009, we basically began to seek a way that we could basically at least return his equity and value to him. And in 2010, we found an exit in a private equity firm. We ended up exiting at the highest of our multiples, benefited the folks did very, very well. Investor did very well. We returned more than 30x back to him. Because remember, we only took one round of funding. He never got diluted. That was the only round that basically the company took and grew itself. So what are the lessons that you learn during this particular journey? Okay, it's not about you. Your journey is just beginning as an innovator. You're just like a seed, you're the progenesis of it, right? A lot more comes to it. Who's going to water the soil? If that soil is not watered, who's going to basically tend to it, right? It's the team that literally makes the overall journey really become more real. So always be on the lookout for complement. Don't look for people the same as you. Believe it or not, you're going to fail. You're going to fight, you're going to argue, and you're going to fail. Look for people that can literally complement what you don't have. Because you are so small, you want to be able to partner with each other and really nourish each other and grow with each other. You want to serve as the catalyst and not the driver so that you can empower and enable others. The way that I lead is I believe that I can do certain things best. I will do them, but then I delegate and I let the other person. I don't like to micromanage. Why would you want to micromanage, right? But that's a big flaw in entrepreneurs. They feel that they can want to do it all and everything, and they end up micromanaging a lot of things and not letting go. Learn to let go, because literally your time is very valuable. Listen to your customers. They're the ones eventually that pay your paycheck. Right? If you don't listen to your customers, just like what BV was saying, I mean, their aha moments and success for one of those companies came because they were in the customer's face and listening to their customers, and eventually the customers told them or showed them that particular path to success. And the same thing applied to us. I mean, our customers told us that, you know what, one quality that you guys have is you guys always listen to us and are there whenever we need you. Establish the attitude for what you stand for. Become the domain leaders. If you believe that you're actually charting a journey that will change something, be very supportive of that, be very, very cognizant of that, and actually lead the way to become that dominant leader. And a story only begins after a journey is started, right? There's no journey that can start if you don't start it, right? So some of you have already started one of those journeys, but also recognize that a journey sometimes might not be the journey that you want. Also be ready to literally recognize very earlier on when you might want to stop that journey, right? There's no point in beating around the bush or continuing on something that will literally consume a lot of your time and energy, right? It's spent in other places. And what I think in the next 5 minutes I'm going to do is tell you about, so that you at least understand this, and it's very, very important for you to understand. As a set of young entrepreneurs, you're going to go through 4 different phases. One is called the discovery phase. Ideally, it shouldn't last more than 5 to 7 months. Ideally, meaning that you have a concept, you should be able to, at the end of the discovery phase, have at least your minimum viable product. In today's day and age, if you're spending more time than that, because the barrier to enter or to create all of these innovations is that much more easy, right? I mean, it's all the tools and all the stacks are there. Kids are creating mobile apps, right? I mean, heck, it doesn't take them much. They go to a hackathon over the weekend over here, and at the end of the weekend, they come back and they have a product, and they're looking for funding. So their discovery phase is like literally 5 days, right? But do not spend too much more time. At the end of those 5 or 7 months, you can decide whether you want to go forward with it or not, right? Don't waste time. The validation phase is when you try to get some early adopters, early customers, and really try to validate your messaging, your positioning, right? The more time that you take in the validation phase, the better for you. Because really, don't go out too early and try to literally figure out how to scale. Oh, I need more customers. You need to be ready for that. Right? Prepare that journey very, very well. Not every company. In the beginning, I tell a lot of the young startups that I mentor, the best person to sell is you. Don't go out there and start looking for another person to actually sell or somebody else on your team. Think about how much time that you have and whether you're maximizing that initially to actually sell or not. Because you're the best person to convince the other person what they need to buy into. And then really the efficiency phase is preparing the company properly in terms of its infrastructure and fundamentals around all the metrics that need to be monitored to go about through the scaling phase, because the last phase is literally the scaling phase. And that, depending upon how long your journey is, can last a long period of time. And a lot of companies get stuck between the efficiency phase and the scale out phase. You don't want to be one of those, right? And I think this is just basically giving you guys more of a guidance. I'm going to skip some of all of this because I don't think it's needed.
It's a very important slide.
Which one?
Many entrepreneurs think they're here, but they're actually there.
Oh, the one before that.
I think that's
this one. Right.
I think that's a very, very, very.
Right.
It is so true.
Right.
Most people think they are
they're at the scale out phase.
more ahead in their play compared to where they're actually.
Right. And it's very, very important to actually recognize that, right? The last thing is actually more as a message for you guys. What do you need to, or what really should you be looking for in yourself or in a co-founder? World-changing ideas and concepts. Research what you're really going about to do. I mean, you're creating something for an EKG, right? There's actually a company locally over here in San Francisco, funded by Khosla Ventures, that actually does, LifeCore, that does 2-lead EKG. Now you're doing a 12-lead EKG, right? What is the benefit? What is the value? How do you intend to basically, they just, by the way, got, I think, some extra round of funding or whatever it was, right? But they've been funded very heavily by Khosla Ventures. But has it succeeded? Believe it or not, no. LifeCore is a very, very big failure for Khosla Ventures. They've pumped so much money into it. They've been giving away that case for free to 10,000 patients, right? That is not how you build value in a company, right? So it's
Sequoia, Qualcomm, and Khosla, all three of them.
Right. And understand your space very well. Make sure that you're traction creators, meaning that let people recognize the value that you bring to the table and have them literally adopt what you have. Make sure that they believe in what you have. If people believe in what you have, they will pay for it. Believe it or not. I mean, you go to an Apollo hospital and show them perhaps how this will actually benefit increasing patient flow or patient care, and they will earn more revenue from it. Believe it or not, every CEO will want to have that, right? Ability to network. I know a lot of people actually hate that, but today's day and age or world is all about that, right? Be an industry leader. You have decided to chart your own course. Well, if you stay in a shell, who will recognize you as a leader, right? You got to create that noise. You got to be on top of your own game and be that leader, right? Persevere. It's a very, very difficult journey, right? Just like in a marriage sometimes that you persevere, as long as that, right? And you should literally have the hunger to succeed, right? If that hunger is not burning and is not there, entrepreneurship is not for you. Because believe it or not, you will literally be very hungry at some points in time, right? And the key attributes that you should have is you should be a juggling artist. You should be a master of all of those things that I've actually indicated, right? And if you can achieve that, you will be great at being an entrepreneur, okay? So with that, thank you very much, and I think I just finished right on time that was allocated to me. I'll be more than happy to take a couple of questions.
There's something, $7 billion. What is that?
Sorry? The company that actually acquired us is a $7 billion private equity fund. So there are two types of exits, right? One of the exits is going public. The other one is basically a strategic exit or a private equity exit, right? Private equity exits are more to basically liquidate shareholder value or release shareholder value. Yeah.
You still serve on the board of Quantum?
No, I don't. I actually, once they took over, the private equity firm that actually took over bought into our vision and everything, but then they brought in new management that did not align itself very well with us. So I actually left the company about 6 months after its acquisition. So, and what we do now is we have myself and other people that left, we still love working with each other. We formed a group called Synapta, and Synapta primarily focuses on healthcare IT companies, young, with a promise, and we actually help them with their scale out, go to market. They need to be beyond the discovery phase. We help them from the validation phase onwards.
So Vish Mishra also?
No, Vish Mishra was actually on the board of Quantros. So Vish actually, we met up with Vish when we came to Silicon Valley, and he was gracious enough and mentored us, and then eventually joined the board of the company. He had a good exit. Yes. Any other questions? No? Well, with that,
Will you mind sharing this?
yes, the slides are actually with Ramesh. Ramesh, if you can share the slides with them, they can have it. Yeah.
One question. I make a product which is a security product in the software space. So normally anything like security, medical or insurance, it's not something that people are excited about. So how do we actually show value to them when
When you say security product, what do you mean by, is it a physical product? Is it a software?
the software itself
Right.
makes other software more secure?
Right. So, I mean, depending upon the market that you are in the U.S., for example, every hospital is worried about data breaches and, security and all because there's HIPAA. And by the way, the fines on HIPAA for every patient's data that is breached, hypothetically, is $10,000 per patient. So if you breach, let's say, for example, 100 patients' data, that's $1 million right there as a fine, as a penalty.
So one question, who's breaching data and for what? I mean,
Well, I mean, so I'll give you a good example. I mean, when one of these actresses actually had a baby in one of the hospitals in Los Angeles, right? Somebody hacked into the hospital computers and basically released the baby's pictures on the media, right? I mean, there are people, there are people that want to basically get into everybody's life for whatever reason, right? But all I'm basically indicating is that you need to look for an industry where there is a need. So in the U.S., there's a penalty. So hospitals want to avoid that penalty, so there might be a market. There's a reason to pay for something. In India, I don't even know whether hospitals actually are worried about data breaches or what happens with data or whatever it is, right? It's just something to basically think about. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.